Netflix is doing something wrong. Let's find out what they're doing.
I want to begin this video by talking about two shows with great first seasons. Netflix's Russian Doll and HBO's Succession. Both shows were favorably reviewed
I've
and
heard of
generally well liked
Succession.
upon release and nominated for Emmys. But I think it's safe to say that Russian Doll was seen as a much bigger deal at the time of release. It's hard to compare these things since Netflix's numbers are fairly secretive and kind of all over the place, but just going by the Google trends, it's easy to see that people talked about that first season a lot. It really dwarfs the searches for Succession Season 1 about half a year earlier. But then, something funny happened. Something that I think is really indicative of a lot of
I know I've heard of Succession and not
Succession grew season
Russian
after
Doll.
season. Word of mouth spread, weekly discussions as the show aired got livelier, and more people were watching every year. Slowly but surely, it kind of became the crown jewel of the current HBO lineup.
Yeah, it
Russian
is.
Doll,
It's
on
big.
the other hand, just released its second season, also well reviewed, to, I don't want to say silence, but clearly far less buzz than season 1. This is not me slamming Russian Doll. I'm a fan. But I think it points to a far larger problem than just one show. Netflix series just aren't built to grow. Most of the time, the first season releases either catch a lot of attention.
Off rip, I agree. Netflix series are not built to grow, and I've been saying this. If they're not big the first season, they're failing. And there's nothing I can say. Like, what show hasn't been big the first season and and actually grew? Stranger Things was big from the beginning. 13 Reasons Why, big from the beginning. I'm just talking about the biggest of the big. Umbrella Academy was big from the beginning. I feel like Umbrella Academy is kind of different. Not a lot of new viewers. Whereas I feel like even on Amazon Prime, The Boys has been growing. Like, it was big, but I didn't hear about The Boys until season 2. I just feel like Netflix shows, if they're not like Outer Banks, I feel like Outer Banks wouldn't have been big if it wasn't for COVID, but it was big and it didn't grow. None of these shows grew. Like, nobody you have to check this season 2 out. That's not coming from Netflix.
And dominate the discourse for a week or two, or just pass by without much fanfare. With season 2, it becomes even harder, with many shows failing to recapture that popularity that they briefly had. Is it any wonder most of their shows barely make it past the third season? Their dump everything at once model was a fun novelty back in 2015.
It was great. It was great at first, but I've been saying this and people always say, oh no, you're wrong. We like to binge. I'm not talking about for you. It's not about the viewers. It's about Netflix. It's about Netflix making money. Netflix making a show that's good, and they can't do that with this strategy that they've been using. Yes, it was good at first, but it's time to change. You don't want to be blockbuster, Netflix.
But to me, it's clear that in the long run, they're really shooting themselves in the foot. Where shows like Succession, The Mandalorian, and Euphoria can hold on to an audience and grow fan passion over time, Netflix doomed a lot of its own shows to being flash in the pans, even when they're good enough to deserve better. About a year ago, I made a video
releasing
with
shows to
pretty
binge.
melodramatic title, The Fall of Netflix, in which I predicted that the loss of shows
Weekly
like Friends
releases are
and
better.
The Office was going to be a big problem for the platform. These are beloved, constantly rewatched hits with hundreds of episodes. The exact kind of show that Netflix has failed to replicate in any meaningful way with its own model. Couple that with rising competition.
Disney Plus has The Simpsons.
Have far deeper libraries.
Exactly.
And
The
I didn't think
whole
things looked too great for
MCU.
them. I took a lot of flack for that video in the comments section, but honestly, with all the news that's come out recently, I do think it's aged pretty well.
You were not wrong.
Netflix is in trouble. They were the undisputed king of streaming for most of the last decade, and now they're losing subscribers to both Disney Plus and HBO Max.
Hey, I don't know what HBO Max got going on with Warner right now. It seems like they going down. So I can't say anything about HBO Max. Disney Plus is on the rise. HBO Max was on the rise. I was slowly losing Netflix. I wasn't watching any Netflix originals besides the big ones. And you know what I'm talking about. Stranger Things. Shout out Sex Education, one of the best shows, period. But you know what I'm saying, bruh.
Constant price hikes not really helping. In an absurd economic system that demands infinite growth forever, that's a major issue. So Netflix's stock has dropped hard, like really hard. I think you could point to a lot of different factors for why they've had a rough go of it lately, with some not even being their fault. As all these other companies started their own streaming services, it was inevitable that popular shows and movies like Friends, The Office, Back to the Future, and Star Trek were all going to be taken off and moved to HBO Max, Peacock, or wherever. To combat this, Netflix has spent billions on new programming. Some of it has even been really good, but not nearly enough has clicked with people. And even when it
not
does,
enough.
I do think people have become really hesitant to get invested in their shows. A self-contained sketch comedy series like I Think You Should Leave is one thing, but when it comes to serialized dramas especially, Netflix has lost some major trust among viewers. Glow, The OA, American Vandal,
American Vandal! Oh my god, how does a show like that stop at season 2, man? How did they fumble that bag? And I feel like, once again, I feel like that's a show that could have grown. Anytime you put somebody onto that show and they watch that first episode, they're gonna keep watching, bro. Oh my god, why did they have to remind me about American Vandal? Another one that they canceled that nobody talks about. I feel like nobody watched this. I don't even know. I think I was on like they were like advertising this show hard, and like nobody talks about it anymore. It's Daybreak, bro. And Daybreak was kind of corny, but it was just the right enough of corny that I actually liked that show. And they canceled it after one season. One season, bro. They put all the advertising. It was at the front page, and then boom, it was canceled. It ended on the wildest cliffhanger too. I'm like, if you haven't seen Daybreak, I don't even know if you want to put yourself through that, because there's no season 2. Like, you feel me? Netflix does cancel a lot of shows that people like. Anytime you go to Netflix's Twitter, bring back this, bring back that. Like, it's all the time. So I understand why people don't trust Netflix.
I think what makes Netflix's current model feel worse to people is that even when their shows are successful, they generally don't last very long. Better Call Saul, a show produced by Sony, just started its 6th and final season on AMC here in America and on Netflix in much of the rest of the world. Does anyone seriously think this series would have made it that far if it was an actual Netflix original? Only a few shows from those first few years of originals, like BoJack Horseman, Grace and Frankie, and Orange...
Now look. We're not gonna sit here and act like Netflix has no bangers, because they do. BoJack is a banger. Stranger Things, banger. Sex Education, I don't care. They only have 4 seasons of that show. I feel like that's fine, though. Sex Education is not supposed to be a 6-season show. So they have bangers. I'm not saying they don't, but I just feel like they not only do they not release the bangers the right way, because I feel like they should just have more reach, more ability to grow. Did you see how Euphoria, every week it was trending? And that's how every TV show should be. Like, look, the binging stuff was good at first. Now we don't need that anymore. Netflix, you're the biggest already. We need to change.
Now it just seems like shows are lucky to get 4 very short ones. And that works really well for some shows, but it also cuts down on how much those series can really do. You couldn't get the blend of serialization and standalone episodes that shows like The Good Wife, Angel, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine have with Netflix originals. And even shows with mostly only 10 to 13 episodes per season, like The Sopranos, Ray Donovan, or The Wire, would still be too long for how the streamer usually operates. As someone who really likes shows that build out expansive worlds with lots of different avenues of stories and characters to explore, that's disappointing. And it makes a lot of Netflix shows feel far more like bloated movies than TV shows that are using their medium to its fullest potential. I mentioned BoJack Horseman earlier, which is one of the big crowning achievements of Netflix originals. But that success in animation seems to have really sputtered out.
Don't even get me started on Netflix animation, bro. Big Mouth has 6 seasons, I think. Like, it was funny. It was not funny, but it was different to see that when I was a freshman. I'm not watching Big Mouth now. What are we doing? Big Mouth is not that funny to have 6 seasons. And it's big. I'll give them that. It's big, but you went from BoJack to Big Mouth? Let's be real here.
We're busy reporting on Netflix's stock and their announcement that they're going to start cracking down on password sharing. The Wrap put out an article about
I can't share a password with my parents? That's crazy. With my parents?
It's a great piece, and I'm really going to try to remember to link it down in the description. One anonymous animation producer described how when they first arrived, Netflix said they, quote, wanted to be the home of everyone's favorite show. But over time, that thesis changed to, quote, we want to make what the audience wants to see. This apparently led them to touting the Boss Baby series as their benchmark of success, using it as an example for the type of numbers that other animated shows need to hit. That's interesting to me because it brings up the very simple question, why would the Boss Baby show be doing so much better than most of their animation? My guess is it has less to do with the quality of the show and more the fact that it's riding the coattails of a movie franchise with a massive marketing budget. For better
and it's for
or worse,
kids. Like, kids stuff always does really good.
Who wears a suit? whereas most Netflix series, especially animated shows, get barely any marketing at all. According to the Wrap,
especially
quote,
animated. I swear, if it was not for YouTube or Twitter, I would not know what Arcane is. It wasn't on the front page of my Netflix. I know I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna watch it, but I would not know what it is because I didn't see it advertised to me. I just know people are hyping it up. People are hyping it up, so I'm gonna watch it. But
for the show's premiere, sometimes they haven't even been announced before then. This leaves a very small window to build awareness and anticipation, much less cultivate genuine excitement. And once the show debuts on the platform, it can often get lost in the shuffle, leading many creators to become their own hype machines via various social media platforms. Levers that other animation studios at bigger corporations can pull, like consumer product releases or promotional tie-ins,
that's
are
a
not
word jumble. That's too much word for me.
Cosmic action figures lining the shelves of Target. You couldn't get a City of Ghosts Happy Meal toy at McDonald's. On the official Netflix shop, there isn't a single kids and family animated series represented. I know that was a really long quote, but I wanted to get through it because I think it cuts to the heart of so many of Netflix's problems. When a show will usually come out through Cartoon Network or HBO Max and get a decent amount of promotion, Netflix is spending money producing things it just leaves out to dry. Is it any wonder that showrunners, especially on the animation side, are leaving in droves? Some of the problems Netflix is facing were inevitable when going up against titans like Warner Brothers, but many of them feel like the direct result of Netflix just straight up fumbling their opportunities. Their strategy of shotgun blasting as many TV shows and movies onto the platform as they can with very little promotion just feels like a failing one, not to mention incredibly expensive. For every hit like Stranger Things, a show that costs $30 million an episode by the way, there's 15 Hoops. 1 season-long shows that are forgotten.
I watched the first 15 minutes of that show. Who was in the writer's room and said, this is the one that we gotta put out, and we gotta put at the front page because they're gonna love this one. Stop it.
And the sad thing is, some of those shows, unlike Hoops, are actually good and deserve some real attention, but had no marketing put behind them. With all these recent price hikes, something had to give.
You're advertising the wrong shows as well.
Call that it would be introducing a subscription tier with ads at a lower price point. I don't know how successful this will be, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of a tough sell. Unlike Hulu, which has integrated ads from the start, Netflix users haven't had to put up with them for over 10 years. That was one of the biggest appeals of Netflix when it launched. I know it definitely appealed to me, just fire up the Wii and watch Firefly, you don't have to worry about ads. In 2011, Netflix Instant really represented a break from the norm. An ad-free...
Hey, if you were there when Netflix started, you were a real OG. When you had to order the movies to watch them and they put them in the DVD player, you were there from the beginning. They only had a few movies on their websites. The other you had to order and they would come to you and you have to send them back. Real OGs. And they had all the movies too. Like literally every movie. They had I remember like for Rocky movies, like obviously now they want to have everything because everybody has their own streaming service. Back then they went crazy.
Space where shows weren't shackled by the time constraints of time slots and commercials. I'll admit, it was a really attractive vision of the future, but one that, with the benefit of hindsight, I think it's worth asking how great it actually was. I mean, all it takes is watching an Arrested Development episode that aired on Fox versus one that was released on Netflix to see that maybe being forced to cut things and have really disciplined editing actually helps shows more than it hinders them. And
don't remind me what they did to Arrested Development, please. This is just making my heart hurt watching this. First of all, I'm mad at Fox and Netflix because they canceled Arrested Development. How did they do that? It really had the potential to be one of the best sitcoms ever, and I will stick by that. Those first 3 seasons were crazy good. Like crazy good. Like maybe it's just hindsight that noticed that. But I will say, yeah, no, they were crazy good. And then Netflix just said, season 4 and 5, we're just gonna make bad episodes. Like that was crazy to me, man.
A lot of cases. Recent years, which have seen more and more Netflix dramas bloat to hour-long plus episodes, have only given me more appreciation for the tight, exciting runtimes of, say, Breaking Bad Season 3, which always came in under 50 minutes. Not to mention, a lot of the creative freedom that came from leaving the networks and cable seems to have evaporated due to Netflix's constant use of their algorithm to steer programming. Showrunners like Maniac's Cary Fukunaga have even admitted as much, saying that Netflix never wants to lose, quote, binging momentum, and that the algorithm's argument is gonna win at the end of the day. So whatever
it's not 2013 anymore.
By car commercials and insurance ads have just been replaced by far more machine-driven ones over at Netflix. TV is not and has never been perfect. There's always been some really good stuff on, and a lot of junk. But at least in the past, especially on cable, good shows felt like they had a real chance to succeed. A show like The Shield was a real shot in the dark for FX back in 2002, but they promoted the hell out of it, people liked it, and it went on to 7 great seasons, with the best one being its final. That's a real TV success story, and one that very, very few Netflix shows even have a shot at. Between their dump everything all at once model and their lack of promotion, they're killing a lot of shows.
Yeah, no, I just feel like that's the main problem with Netflix right now. Even the shows that are good don't see what they're supposed to see. Not everybody is seeing those shows, and that's the big problem with Netflix. That's really the problem with Netflix right now. I can admit I haven't seen a bunch of shows because Netflix doesn't make me want to see them. At the end of the day, there are a lot of good shows out there that I know I just haven't seen yet. And is that my fault or is that Netflix's fault? Because what can I do? Like, if I don't know about it, how am I supposed to watch it? Anyway, if you like this video, here's a video just like it. I appreciate you for watching.